Dr. Hastings, on March 26, not you, but VA officials told this committee that within 90 days, the department would make a decision on expanding the list of Agent Orange presumptive diseases to include bladder cancer, hypothyroidism, Parkinson's-like symptoms, and hypertension. March 26, April, May, June 26 was the 90 days. Now it's been 183 days. You just told the committee the decision is within leadership. Might be a commentary on your leadership, but when is this going to be made?
And it is in coordination with other federal agencies. So I'm as hopeful for a decision soon as you are.
Can you do anything about more than hope? Can you accelerate this? I mean, it's been twice the 90 days that your superiors came in here and promised. I assume they're your superiors?
Pretty much everybody is my superior.
I don't think so, but.
I can absolutely find out where it is in the process with the external coordination, and I'd be very happy to get that information and give you a back brief.
Okay. Every day we wait on presumptive eligibility is more people fighting with the VA, more of your resources processing these with less certitude, and probably more men and women dying from one of these illnesses. A shift to burn pits. Since forces deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, DOD has known that burn pits, similar to Dow Chemical and probably DOD knowing about Agent Orange, DOD's known that burn pits release toxic plumes into the air. There are memos, one dating back to 2006, near the beginning of the Iraq War, or around soon after, containing phrases like an acute health hazard for individuals, another phrase, possibility for chronic health hazards associated with smoke, another, the known carcinogens and respiratory sensitizers released from the atmosphere present both an acute and a chronic health hazard to our troops and our local population, unquote. But the burn pits continued, the size of football fields is my understanding. Air quality testing at Bagram Airfield found that air samples were considered, quote, unhealthy by EPA standards. So Dr. Rausch, walk me through the department's thinking here. If we have weekly air sample data from burn pits that routinely show particulate matter exceeding EPA health standards, DOD shared that raw data with VA or outside experts to build a comprehensive picture of what our service members, civilians, contractors in the local populations were exposed to. So walk me through this. What's the problem?
Well, the department's position is in response really to, I believe it was on the House side that requested a report from the department, which is due February, on alternatives to burn pit, technology alternatives to burn pits in the deployed environment. So that report is still ongoing in terms of the analysis and the proposed solutions, but the department is moving away from open burn pits.
Well, as they should, but let me boil it down. So DOD shared that information with VA years and years ago, correct?
Well,
The health issues.
we share information with the VA all the time. I can't say it was years and years.
Well,
I
would really like to know some of those comments made that I quoted and other data from DOD to make sure. I would like to know when, in fact, that was shared with the VA. First point, and if you would get that to us,
I will.
At some point. I'd like to know what local population we're exposed to. That is really important. We go into these war zones, we leave behind lots of things. Some toxic, sometimes a better life for people, but sometimes you get it. And last, Dr. Hastings, has VA established a presumption of eligibility of service connection and list of diseases associated with exposure to burn pits? Senator Manchin asked about, it took us a long time, but we learned something from Agent Orange. We were too slow. Elected officials were too slow. VA, we were all too slow. DOD knew more than they told, all those things. But we know that burn pits are exposure to burn pits is a very serious thing, resulting in illness and sometimes death. So are we going to do a presumption of service connection in list diseases on burn pits? If we are, when, and why not yet?
I do not know if we will be required to do a presumption for burn pits. We are getting a lot more information. And
What do you mean
able-
required?
I don't know if a presumption will be necessary. We may be able to do it on an individual basis. If we do have a presumption that comes out, I believe we would look at it after the National Academy report that we will get in October of next year. I would like to ask my colleague, Dr. Helmer, who was previously at the War-Related Illness Injury Study Center at the Airborne Hazards Open Burn Pit Center of Excellence, if he has any comments in regards to that.
So I think you're seeing a real flourishing of information and scientific, high-quality research that's coming out about what might be associated with, let's start with the unexplained shortness of breath and decreased exercise tolerance that many of our veterans have reported since their deployment to Iraq or Afghanistan. I think at this point, there are multiple potential causes, the burn pit smoke being one of them. The ambient air quality was actually highlighted by the National Academy's report in 2011 as maybe the most likely source of a problem for those service members. And our own more recently has actually highlighted the possibility of blast overpressure as being a contributing factor, at least in some individuals' experience of shortness of breath. So I think that there's a lot of good science that's being done, and we're getting a better understanding of what the causal factors might be. And so I would just, before a presumption is determined, perhaps we should understand a little better about why.
Thank you. I see that. My time's way over, but I make three real quick comments. First of all, there seems to be a lack of urgency in all of this as people contract, get sick and die in far too many cases. And every time we wait to add names to the presumption, to the list, to the Agent Orange presumptive eligibility list, every time we talk about this with burn pits, another day goes by in people's lives. That's one point. Dr. Hastings used the word requirement. Well, there is no requirement. Congress should pass a requirement, but you can move on a requirement of beginning to compile which diseases should in fact be on this list. And third, that you made a statement that, and you don't need to respond to this now, as I said, I'm over time, but you made a statement that the VA, that we don't know if we need presumptive eligibility. We can handle each one, and that's the whole point. If we handle each one, it just slows everything down. That's what we tried to do with Agent Orange for, 2 decades or whatever, until Congress and the VA and the public and the DAV and the VFW, the American Legion, and the Polish American vets and all figured this out, that we need presumptive eligibility. So those are just my three assertions that I hope you take into account. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.